Welcome to The Bold New Normal, the podcast where bold ideas meet transformative action. I'm your host, Lucy Quist, and I'm here to challenge mindsets, ignite conversations, and inspire you to create the future you deserve. A future where equity, opportunity, and prosperity are not just dreams but realities. So let's dive in and build the bold new normal together.
Hi, I got back home from work today and I thought that I would jump on here and do a quick pod on something that's been on my mind for a couple of weeks now, the courage to speak up. This year for the Bold New Normal conference, we're talking about culture and language and how it affects our socialization for prosperity. And a really big aspect of that is having the courage to speak up. How do you create the courage in an individual to speak up? Or how do you as an individual find your voice and your willingness and ability to speak up? The truth of the matter is that most people who find their voices early are socialized through their home, their raising, the parenting that they experience to know how to use their voice. Helping your child find their voice is one of the most important gifts you'll give them as a parent. And there are very practical ways to do it. But first, let me talk about the counter argument. So in some societies, you'll find that children are supposed to be seen and not heard. And then it becomes a way of consistently reminding them to hold their voice, to hold their horses, to be silent, to not say anything. And then it becomes a norm. And so it's very interesting that in some societies, I find people tell me that more than average, that they're introverts. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with being an introvert. There are times that we need to find the introverts in us, even when you're not an introvert, to know how to calm yourself and really listen to other people. But even as an introvert, you need to have your own voice, the voice that represents what you deeply believe, what you're passionate about, what you care about, what you want the world to think and know about you. Because the truth of the matter is that no one is a mind reader. So one of the ways in which my dad really helped me find my voice, it was really simple. Now, when I look back, I realized that it was intentional, but for me, it was just normal experience at home. And they'd be having an adult conversation and two adults discussing, and half the time I really didn't know what they were talking about or enough detail. I can remember this happening maybe as young as like 5 or 6, and he'd call me over and he would say, okay, let's ask Lucy. Lucy, what do you think? And looking back, and a lot of the time, what I had to offer wasn't some great insight, but what he was doing with that is just giving me the opportunity to express myself. When we talk about finding your voice, it is expressing yourself in ways that demonstrate to the world how you think, what you think, how you string your thoughts together, how you speak up for yourself. So the courage to speak up is so important. And finding your voice is a fundamental element to finding the courage to speak up. I tell the story of how I spoke up to my grandmother once, and bless her, she was always a wonderful woman. But sometimes when we speak up, what we're really speaking to is our visions. And if you've read the Bold New Normal book, then you know that I talk about how what we say aligns to vision. And it's about, we have to articulate our visions and almost speak them back to ourselves enough to allow us to take action to realize those visions. And I remember the story I tell about my grandmother and the firewood. And if you've been following me for a while, you probably heard this story where I was lighting a tripod firewood fire and I was making a mess of it. And she was very cross with me, lovingly. She told me I really needed to learn this skill. If you don't know, if you're not from Ghana or you're not from, a society that uses literally 3 mounds of earthenware, clay, I should say, and you put the firewood inside and then you lighten that stand can then support a saucepan and then you can cook. Anyway, so I'm lighting this fire and my grandmother is noticing what a mess I'm making of it and I'm complaining in between. And she says to me that this is an important skill. And I say to her, well, I don't need to learn it because in future I won't have it in my house. And she was very cross with me. But why do I bring this example and replay it in a different guise? I'm replaying it from the fact that in that statement, I was capturing a vision of the life I wanted to have. It wasn't so much about speaking back to my grandmother, but I was courageously speaking up and articulating the vision I have for myself. So it's also important that in finding your voice and finding the courage to speak up, you speak up in ways that reinforce positively your visions that you have for your future and what you want to achieve with your life. Well, let's think of another example. The number of times people will go to a doctor and really just behave as though they're just recipients of information, recipients of the doctor's guidance. But remember, the doctor doesn't live your life. The doctor doesn't wake up with you, eat with you, go to sleep in your when you're going to sleep and so on. So what it really means is that you know you more than anybody else. You have to speak up and engage, ask questions, understand what it is he or she is saying to you so that you can either make a meaningful contribution or apply it in ways that really suit your lifestyle. So I would say that it's another setting in which it's so important to speak up, right? Find the courage to speak up.
The Bold New Normal Conference is back. And this year, we're creating prosperity through the transformative power of culture and language. Tickets out now.
I think there are two other areas that I want to touch on really. And one is around in the workplace. Sometimes we're concerned about expressing our true ambition and goals to our bosses. But if you develop a really good rapport with your boss and your boss is someone who's mature and cares, they should want you to advance in your career. And if they want you to advance in your career, then you need to find the appropriate times and opportunities to courageously speak up and speak to your ambition and speak your ambition to them and seek their help. Because most bosses, I can promise you, most people in leadership positions would love nothing more than to help the people around them do better and do really, really well. But they're not mind readers. They can't tell what you're thinking unless you tell them. I'll say that again. Your boss is not a mind reader. You need to find the courage to speak up, to express your ideas, but also to express your ambition so that they can support your ambition and move your ambition forward. The last area of finding the courage to speak up that I'm going to touch on, and it's a really, really big one. And so, bear with me. But I know that a lot of people who take the time to listen to my podcast are people of faith, particularly Christian faith. And I find it really baffling that a lot of the time in the church, people don't have the courage to speak up, to even engage, to ask questions. And you're probably listening to me or watching me and going, well, Lucy, it's not that simple. It is that simple. It's simple, especially if you've taken the time to study for yourself and know some of the scripture for yourself. And even if you don't know the scripture for yourself, you want to ask questions to clarify your knowledge and understanding. If you've read the New Testament, then you'll know that when Jesus was it 12 or 13 that his parents took him to the temple for the first time, and when they were walking back home, they realized that he wasn't in their company. They went back to look for him, and there he was debating with the rabbis, the big teachers of scripture. And that, to me, is the greatest representation of the courage to speak up. But he was discussing, he was asking questions, he was seeking new knowledge. And sometimes if we don't speak up, we miss the opportunity to acquire new knowledge, because in probing, we learn things we wouldn't otherwise know. So I would encourage you to really find the courage to speak up in the context of church, in the context of living out your faith, in the context of growing in your faith and understanding. And maybe it's not even the pastor, maybe it's just a fellow, Christian or someone else that you want to have a discussion with. And sometimes you can disagree. You can disagree on a particular point of interpretation and challenge each other. Sometimes when that happens with me and we don't arrive at an agreed solution that we think makes sense, we just say, okay, let's ask someone else. And I do this with my children. I ask my pastor questions. I ask my Christian friends questions. Speak up. If you have a perspective, share it. Share it with the people around you. And most importantly, within your sphere of influence, whether you are a parent, whether you are someone who works, who teaches, who's a student, whatever you do, Create space and room for others. Create room for others to speak up. Give people the level of comfort that says, I want to hear your voice. I'm interested in what you have to say, and I want you to express it so I learn. You know, people talk about this cliche growth mindset, speaking up and creating room for other people to speak up. That creates an environment where people grow together. Right. Before I leave, I want to tell you about the Bold New Normal Conference, 8 a.m. sharp, 25th of October, 2025, at the Enclave in East Legon. Now, it's sponsored by our lead sponsor, Margins ID Group. And I look forward to you reaching out and telling me more about your ways in which you want to support the Bold New Normal Conference and the Bold New Normal podcast to reach more and more people as we collectively create our Bold New Normal, create the Africa where everyone prospers. Take care.
Thank you for tuning in to the Bold New Normal. I hope this episode has inspired you to think boldly and take action towards creating the future you envision. If you found value in today's conversation, don't forget to subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with someone who needs a dose of boldness today. Until next time, take action to create your bold new normal.
The Bold New Normal Conference is back. And this year, we're creating prosperity through the transformative power of culture and language. Tickets out now.